Hello everybody and welcome to this first in a small series of videos which will be looking at 2.6 from theme 2. So what we're looking at in this series of videos is going to be macroeconomic objectives and policies to support those objectives. So you've got up on the board the specification which we're going to be focusing on. In this video it's all going to be about 2.6.1, which is about macroeconomic objectives. What you can hopefully see at the top of the page, that there are 7 different objectives that you've got to be aware about. Economic growth, low unemployment, a low stable rate of inflation, reduce that current account deficit to put a balance of payments equilibrium, support or improve government finances, so reduce budget deficits, work towards budget surplus so you can start paying down national debt, protect and enhance the environment, and reduce inequality. Right, what I'd like you to do, I was giving you 7 of them. I would like you to identify 5 macro targets and just briefly write down why you think they are important. What I would also like you to do is to put down what the letters of DIGESTIVE stand for. So when we think about macro objective development, DIGESTIVE is a really good acronym to remember. So what does each letter stand for in DIGESTIVE? Right, hit pause and please write down your answers. Right, anyway, everyone, you've got here 4 key macroeconomic objectives. These are things that we've looked at in previous topics. So a key objective for all economies across the world is to support economic growth. So we want to increase real GDP, that's actual, and for potential we want to improve or increase the country's factors of production, because what that will allow us to do long run is to have more actual economic growth. There was a previous video that went through all the benefits of economic growth, and these will be things such as it creates jobs, it raises wage rates, it allows the government to improve their finances because there's more tax revenue coming in, it's incentivising firms to invest. So growth is a key target for the economy. Another key target is to reduce unemployment. Okay, now the idea is what we want to do here is to reduce the number of people claiming job seekers allowance to the lowest possible point. Now what we would say though is we're never going to be looking to achieve 0% unemployment. We're working towards something that we call the natural rate of unemployment. Okay, so there's always going to be people who are frictionally unemployed. There's always going to be a certain extent of structural unemployment within the economy as well. So people that lack skills to find jobs and people who are between jobs within the economy. So we want to get that unemployment rate to be as low as possible. Normally in the UK, we say the natural rate of unemployment will occur at roughly 4% unemployment. And the logic would be the lower we get unemployment down, well, the more people are contributing towards society, producing output. It reduces spare capacity, it allows more people to pay taxes, but also more people to have the income they need to meet their basic wants and needs. Another key target is to achieve 2% inflation. So here we're aiming for price stability. We should remember that inflation is measured mainly through the CPI, which is the consumer price index, but we also have the retail price index. Now the idea is if we aim for 2% inflation, we're preventing the dangers of high inflation, which leads to a huge reduction in international competitiveness. It leads to problems linked to menu costs and shoe leather costs. It erodes real incomes. You tend to get more people striking for higher rates of pay to protect their real incomes. If you go the other way and it drops below 2%, you're running the risk of deflation. So if it's falling below 2%, so originally disinflation, then maybe deflation, that tends to kill animal spirits and confidence in the economy. So 2% inflation is what we'd expect to see when we operate on the trend rate of growth. Okay, so a key objective is 2% inflation. Now the next one is to try to reduce the current account deficit. Remember that the current account deficit is measured by performance in trading goods, trading services, income payments. So we're looking here at incomes on investments overseas, and then international transfers, which is linked to government aid. What we genuinely focus on here is trying to reduce the trade deficit. So promote export growth to allow us to keep buying the imports that we need. But also if we export more, that can support better economic growth, it creates jobs, and hopefully it will help ease off and improve our balance of payments performance as well. So overall, everyone, what we want in the economy, we want higher economic growth, we want unemployment to be as low as possible, we want inflation to be at 2%, which is what we call price stability, and we want to promote more export growth to reduce our current account deficit. 3 other key objectives. You can see this first one, improve government finances. Our government at the moment has got roughly £2 trillion of national debt. So what we've got to try to do is to reduce that as much as possible. Probably not at the moment because of what's going on linked to COVID-19 and a recession, but in the longer term, we've got to be looking at reducing this national debt. Now, to do this, what you would need to do is to reduce government spending and or raise taxes. So that would be about reducing budget deficits originally to reduce how much additional borrowing needs to take place, and then moving slowly towards a budget surplus where we can start to pay down that debt. You tend to measure national debt as a proportion of GDP because it shows you how affordable that debt is for the country. So in the UK at the moment, national debt is 100% of GDP. Now, governments in recent years have focused on trying to keep budget deficits to a minimum, because if the economy starts growing again, then national debt as a proportion of GDP might start to fall. So even though the debt might not be coming down, as a proportion of GDP, it might start to come down. Another key one is about protecting the environment. This one's all about sustainability. So what we're trying to do here is to keep on growing the economy, but in a way which is protecting the environment. So, you know, not using up as many natural or finite resources. So reducing our demand for non-renewable and moving towards more renewable resources. About trying to reduce emissions in the atmosphere, reduce waste, plastic waste, that type of thing, to enhance the environment so we're living in harmony with the planet. Okay, so it's about promoting sustainable improvements in living standards, things that could be maintained long term. The next one is to reduce inequality in society. You tend to find that as economies grow, growth tends to benefit the wealthy more than the poor. And that is because those that can invest into businesses and build up more wealth will see their incomes and wealth increase further during the boom times. You will get the trickle-down effects, so those at the bottom of the pyramid will be able to access better jobs. They might be able to access more government support because more taxes have been paid, but that could lead to more inequality. So what we try to do is to create what we call pro-poor growth. So it's about growing in a way that allows poorer people to access better paid jobs, develop their human capital, to access better housing and other merit goods, which will raise their living standards. The last thing I want to show you in this video is this. So DIGESTIVE, it's a really, really important acronym to remember to think about macroeconomic objectives. Now, development is all about living standards. Now, we measure living standards through things such as GDP per capita, but then we might look at something called the Human Development Index in the second year of the course. But under development, I'd also include the impacts on the environment and sustainability of things as well. Inflation. When you think about I for DIGESTIVE, you should be thinking inflation. This could be cost push, demand pull. It could be linked to expectations about growing inflation. You've got growth, so actual, which is short run growth, and long run, which is potential growth. Employment, you could be thinking about, you know, jobs being offered, unemployment rates. Structure of the economy is one that people tend to struggle with the most. We're looking at the pattern of GDP. So we're looking at the range of different goods and services produced within the economy. So in the UK, for example, in the last 30, 40 years, we've had deindustrialisation where our manufacturing base has been in decline, but the service sector has grown. We could be looking at parts of the economy which are performing really well, parts of the economy which are struggling. Okay, so you're looking at different aspects or parts of the economy. Now, quite clearly, what that will mean is that incomes are growing in some industries, but maybe shrinking in other industries. Investment might be growing in some industries and firms, but maybe not in others. Trade, so we're looking at trade performance, current account performance, investments in and out of our economies. Inequality, that gap between the rich and poor people in society. And then finally, fiscal balance. So, you know, the state of the government finances, the national debt, the future tax burdens we might have to reduce national debt payments. So quite often what you'll find on macro papers, they'll ask you to evaluate or explain the macro objectives of something. Whenever you see macro objectives, you should be thinking digestive, because it gives you a great idea of the things the examiner's expecting you to talk about. Right, guys, now a really good way of ending this is to go back to the specification. Look at 2.6.1. What you should now be able to explain is what these different targets mean, how we would measure them, how would we measure improvements towards these targets, what's the benefits of achieving these targets. You might even think about why might it be difficult to achieve these targets. Right, guys, now in the next video, we're going to focus on demand side policies, which is a really, really useful way of thinking about how we can support, through government intervention, targets that we're trying to achieve in the economy. Right, everyone, thank you very much.